welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at how you can retrieve data from a REST-based service using .NET. In this episode, the REST service we will be using is implemented using the ASP.NET MVC application. As REST services become more and more common, if you have not run into the need to retrieve data from a service, it's only a matter of time till you will, and we'll walk you through the creation of a very small piece of code which is actually needed to gather this data. In a previous episode, we took a look at how you can post data to a REST service, so if you need that, check out the other episode. Before we get started, I've already created the REST service that we want to hit, and it's called home get data, and it will basically just return us a single XML snippet within our response stream. And of course, you could use a REST service to return XML or string or JSON or pretty much anything you'd like at this point. So I've already started and I've already created our unit test here that will actually call off to the getData method. So once we've created the test, I actually want to bounce over and actually create the library for actually gathering the message. So I've got the method here called getMessage, and it takes the URL or the endpoint in which we want to gather the data from. Now before I get started, I actually want to create a little helper method here called getMyHTTP request. This is the helper method that will actually create the HTTP web request and set up things like the method type, which we're going to set to get. In this scenario, we're actually going to set the content length to 0 because we're not actually going to be pushing data to the service. We just want to retrieve data from the service. And because we expect the response value to be as an XML document, we want to set the content type as text XML. Now here's the body of our get message, and it looks very similar to the post body if you've seen that episode, with a very slight difference. So here we're going to create a request. So we're going to call it to our helper method and actually create the request, make sure it's a get, set the content type appropriately. And then we're going to call getResponse. This will actually go out to the service and actually invoke the service and get the data. And then if the status code is not okay, we want to throw some exception just to make sure that we check that scenario. And if it is okay, we want to get the response stream from the response and actually push that into a stream reader and read the values. This here is what will actually pull the value out of the stream and will contain our XML document. And then finally, we want to return that XML document back to our caller and move on. So if all this is wired up correctly, I should be able to put a breakpoint here and run our unit test and see if it works. So step into this. And as you can see, I did hit my service correctly, and it did read the value, and I returned a value of a simple XML snippet called some XML response. Of course, in a real scenario, this would be more than a simple snippet. It would be a full-blown object or document or whatever value you would like to return. And then I can return this back. Some things to take care of or to pay attention to when you're doing this, you're going to definitely want to use these using statements just to make sure you clean up after yourself, because these are streams and you do want to close them or you'll find yourself having a little bit of memory leak. So as you can see, in order to grab data from a REST service using a HTTP GET, you really only need to implement about 10 or 15 lines of code and set the content type appropriately and actually just call off and get the response stream. So I hope you learned something, and until next time.